Excellent. Well, thank you, friends, for joining this webinar, for joining this Saturday, wherever you are. I am happy to have you here. Um, we'll be covering today some questions about time and talent, looking at the other components of running a stewardship campaign so that we can make sure that we're asking for everyone to share every gift they have in the best way possible. So we'll be going over those other T's, time and talent, along with our treasure. My name is Davey Gerhard. I'm the Executive Director of TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship, and I'm happy to have you with us today. Let's get started. We'll be covering a few things in today's session. We're going to start with a little conversation about the gifts of treasure so that we can get that out of the way and focus on the real spiel, the time and the talent. But we will be talking about tithing and other financial gifts that we give to the church and make an argument for why that's not quite enough, why holistic giving are the kinds of campaigns that we should be running. We're going to talk a lot about, what it is to volunteer. What are the benefits? Why is it good for you? Why is it good for us? Why is it good for your volunteers? And we're going to talk a little bit about how we ask our members to share their talents and then how we make ourselves ready to accept volunteers into our church. It requires a little work on our part to make sure that we have programs that are good and ready for volunteers to join. So we'll be covering a few basic points, and then we'll finish, as all good things in stewardship should, with some recognition and some gratitude. So, our gifts of treasure, they barely scratch the surface of what God asks of us. We're asked to share all of ourselves, not just limit it to the gifts that we make from our checkbook or our other means of financial gifts. We're called to be active. Our baptismal covenant calls us not just to stay behind our desks, but to get out into the world, to heal and fix and find what's broken and to encounter our neighbors as they are. So, to do all that, we need more than just our money. Our congregations need more than just financial gifts. They need our good ideas. They need our good action. They need our hands in the world. Much of our teaching about the concept of tithing comes from the Torah. Perfectly fine place for that teaching to come from, but it's buried deep in our ancestral DNA as people of the book, and we've developed some ideas about that I don't know that we've completely shaken. We certainly have some scriptures, and they're here in front of you, about tithing and what that's meant, and why the people of God at that particular time were called to share their gifts in a particular way. And we've carried that theology, that request from God that we share 10%. Why 10%? I mean, it's an arbitrary number, it's a round number, but does it do everything we need it to do? We all have heard this offertory sentence in church: all things come of thee, O Lord, and we can probably finish it in our heads, and of thine own have we given thee. This idea that we give back in measure as God has given us, and it's that word, in measure, that is impossible for us, right? How could we possibly give back to God what God has given us when God created the entire universe and everything that's in it? And we barely give that back. We barely give 10% of who we are back to God. So, um, this is an idea. Certainly, we give of ourselves, but when we limit our theology or our practice to that particular moment, well, what are we missing? So let's talk about what it is to go a little deeper in giving. And I look at this passage from Matthew where he is calling out the Pharisees once again. You might give a tenth of everything you have, but you've neglected what truly matters: justice, mercy, faithfulness. That's what you should be focused on, not how much or what percentage or what kinds of gifts you can give, but in fact, doing what the law requires you to do. Get out there and seek and serve your neighbors and help them when they need help. And with that in mind, we have yet another offertory sentence that I bet we can all finish. When the priest begins, walk in love as Christ loved us, I bet we can all finish and say the end of that about Christ's sacrifice for us and how we are in relationship with the church and with the body of Christ as we negotiate that through love. So I'd like us to have a little Bible study. We're going to spend a couple of minutes here talking about this particular passage. We know it well. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. It is one of our famous passages. Many people, even who don't go to church, at least know that phrase from the Bible. But I wonder if we might do a little meditation on this as a group before we get into talking about the other ways that we share our gifts. And I'm hoping that one of you feels called to read a couple of verses from Matthew's 22nd chapter. Whoever feels so called, just begin and start reading, please, out loud.
Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and show deference to no one, for you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax. And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, Whose head is this, and whose title? They answered, Caesar's. Then he said to them, Give therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. When they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away.
Laverne, thank you for reading that so beautifully, and thank you for sharing that with us. So, um, what do we think about what this is saying to us? What does Jesus think about just tithing? What's the difference in Matthew's gospel here between the law and the spirit of the law? I'm going to stop sharing our screen so that we can see each other's faces and have just a couple of minutes of conversation about this passage and about what it might mean to us and what Jesus is calling us to do. What are some thoughts that you all might have on this passage and what Jesus why is this carried down throughout history for us to read today? Anyone want to start? I've surprised you all with Bible study. Laverne.
When I've heard this read, um, the context that understood was that it was telling us we give to God what's God, but we pay taxes. That's what I've heard it referenced to, why we pay taxes. Um, and um, and I wondered about it because I felt that there was something deeper, but that was the surface understanding that I have, the rationale for why we pay taxes.
A sermon on taxes. That'll bring them in. Um, I wonder about that. So, I mean, and I think, when we think about our responsibilities as citizens and then as citizens of God's kingdom, what are the differences there? Where are we in tension or where are we in harmony? Are there, we're dual citizens in a way. And where does that bring us into relationship and where does that cause us tension? And I like that, Laverne. Virginia has typed into the chat, that she thinks definitely Jesus believes that giving is far more than just treasure. Give us give back to God the gifts that God gave us, which time, talent, and treasure. Virginia, I'll pay you later for saying that. Thank you. That's an excellent idea, and I think that's coming out here, right? It's about more. You can talk about what you give all you want, cumin, dill, lovely seasonings for your food, but it's really what matters and how you give back to your neighbor, how you treat them. Jesus might be telling us. Thank you for that, Virginia. Any other ideas on what Jesus might be calling us to think about or to do in this passage?
Davey, this is Ram.
Hi,
Uh,
Ram.
when I think about this, I also, for some reason, I'm thinking about the widow's mite. And she gave all she had, so, it's almost like don't stop at 10%. It's like Jesus wants 100% of our lives, 100% of our lives. I think 100% of our allegiance. Everything everything that we do with every moment of our life is a stewardship matter. Um, and I think we're being called to a higher way of living, I think is what Jesus is doing.
Thanks, Ram. It's almost like you're on the board of a stewardship organization. My goodness.
I wonder.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And I mean, why stop at 10%? Does Jesus stop at 10%? No, Jesus gives everything. God gave us everything. We're in this. And as Christians, certainly in our baptismal covenant, we're not called to stop at a certain point. We're called to keep going into the world, to keep finding new ways to change the world, to bring justice about. And that calls on us to be more than 10%. Thank you. And thanks all. I'm going to move us back into our content, but I really appreciate this little moment to think about what our traditions, since we started with some tradition in the Torah about tithing, and we flipped the script a little in the New Testament and hear about it. And I wonder as we move forward to think about that Torah example of giving 10% and what Jesus is calling us in this passage, and why we still linger with this idea that giving money is enough. Where does that, when we're so clearly given this other choice in the new law, in the new way of thinking about things, why we hold on to a different way that was presented in a different time for a different people. So think about that tension as we move forward in today's session. I'm going to move us back to sharing our screen and move forward. And Ram, I really like where you ended there, that we give 100%. I heard Bishop Greg Rickel, formerly of the Diocese of Olympia. Now he's assisting down in Southeast Florida. But he said once, we're not called just to 10%. We're 100% in. As Christians, we're all in to the gospel, giving our time, our lives, our livelihood, our thoughts, our spirit. And so I really appreciate that. So when we run a stewardship campaign, often we are focused, of course, on the gifts of treasure, and we often think stewardship is synonymous with fundraising. And certainly our vestry calls the stewardship together because they want us to favorably impact the budget, and they're thinking about our gifts. But I think our role as stewardship leaders is to say yes, and we can do so much more than deliver a contribution to the budget or a good fundraising program. We can also help people think generously about sharing their time and their talent. And so let's move through into some formation exercises that we can take back to our churches and help them remember that our gifts are about more than our gifts of treasure. No stewardship program is complete without equally emphasizing our time and our talent. And I know that we're used to saying time, talent, treasure, or wealth, works, and wisdom. They go together in a clever little way, and that's nice, but we really need to keep on each of those three. And when we're talking about stewardship in our congregations, make the concerted effort to also remember that we're talking about our other gifts, because the financial gift part of our campaigns often rises to the top, and it's what people are most anxious about. Our money, of course, funds a lot of our budget and the mission, but it's our bodies and our action in the world and our thoughts that enact the ministries of our church. And we need to remember that that's part of it too. Volunteering is such an important life experience for many of us who have volunteered in things, and it is the lifeblood of a church. If you imagine uh, what your church would be like if you didn't have volunteers who are working in the altar party, who are preparing the church for worship, who are keeping it clean, who are doing the gardening, who are going out and serving your community in ministries, if we didn't have volunteers who are willing to donate their time or their in-kind gifts or other things that they might share, where would it be? So I want us to focus a little on the benefits of being a volunteer. And these are things that we can use when building a volunteer program or a holistic stewardship ministry that we can help our congregation remember or tap into that they are in fact a part of this and that volunteering is good for the soul. It connects us to others. It's often, it's often one of those things that people meet each other in volunteer settings, and they connect and they form friendships. In a lot of our churches, there's a core of volunteers who maybe run a single program or across multiple programs, and they're often the core of our church, the people that we call on to do or think or get involved with in so many ways. It allows us to connect to our community, our greater community, to see outside of ourselves or our families or our work stress or our school stress or the things that are foremost in our mind. It allows us to expand and open up and think about our community. Even helping with a small task or a repetitive task can unlock your mind and connect you to others. Volunteerism helps you make friends. And that's another essential component of living in the world and community. We need to do this together and meet people along our way who can join us for our journey. When I moved to San Francisco many years ago, 3 decades almost from Boston, and I grew up in the Midwest. The first thing I did was look for places to volunteer and look for a choir to join, because I would have an instant group of friends, people that shared some values or some experiences, and some things that I could do. And my very oldest friends in San Francisco, the people I met in my first month or two, are still friends because, we met through volunteering and we were doing things together for our community. So we can build that into our church volunteering programs as well and talk about that to our community, both inward and our neighbors. Remind them that volunteering is a place that'll help you connect if you're new to the neighborhood or help you make friends that can be lifelong friends. It strengthens your ties to the community as well. When you see what your neighbors need from you and you're able to solve that or fix that or serve them in a way that gives them what they need, we are doing something really beautiful for our own souls in that work as well. Volunteering is a good way to practice social and relationship skills. And this isn't particularly important to our younger generations who spend so much time on screens and so much time connecting virtually with each other. If you can put some things in their hands that aren't handheld screen devices, but are about doing some work in the world or feeding people or serving people or building something, then we're building not just a skill set, but also those real in-person relationship and social skills that are so essential to us who live and work in community. So, I'm an introvert. You might not guess that because I am a loud talker. I come in to a webinar and I smile and use my hands, but actually I'm an introvert. And so I need some kind of structure. You've got to show up at 10 a.m. to volunteer for this thing because you said you would, and it'll get me out and it'll get me meeting some people and doing some things. And so providing that structure is what some of us need in our lives to get out there and be more social and find some relationships to deal with. And once you have a momentum, like my story about moving to San Francisco, once you get a little core of friends, then it allows you to move out and to do other things. Maybe there are other volunteer opportunities that we could go and do together, or I could learn about because I've finished this skill or met these people. So it unlocks yet more interest in being in our community and volunteering. I think volunteering brings us closer to God as well. And we have this in the example of Jesus, who taught us over and over again that it is in serving others that we save them. It is in serving others that we save ourselves, that we come and form that close connection, that godly, loving connection with people. And so I look at this example of Jesus washing his disciples' feet and telling us to go and do the same, right? This isn't just something that you do in some power dynamic or social construction, but you break the mold. And if it's been done to you, you do it to someone else and you teach that. That reciprocity creates that connection to each other. And that's the stuff of agape love, that unconditional, totally absorbing love that God gives us. When we serve others, not just we don't just model Jesus, who he was and how he acted, but we also meet Jesus in others. And I think that as we look at our philosophers and our theologians who wrote so beautifully and have written so beautifully over the millennia about encountering Jesus in the faces of those that they serve and in making those connections, or we look at our scripture and we look at the anointing of Jesus or these other breakthrough moments where people served and were able to be served by, and we see how those connections are upheld, lifted up, and remembered. Volunteering is just good for us. It can help connect or reconnect with parts of our own identity or history or skill sets that maybe we felt we abandoned or left behind. Um, I've always loved cooking. But I didn't do much of it. I was always too busy to cook much until I was asked to volunteer in a food kitchen, the kind of food kitchen that prepares meals, not just hands out boxes. It's all good. Feeding is good, but we were a kitchen that prepared whole meals. And I was then sharpening this skill that I'd been taught. And now I cook my own meals at home and for friends and entertain. It's turned into a whole different sort of thing for me. But what it did was help me reconnect with something that I did with my mother, that I did with my grandmother, and that, through my college and early adult years, I had left behind because I was too busy to cook. Well, who's too busy to cook? It's the skill that's always there. And once I was asked to unlock it to serve others, then I unlocked it again for myself and find that joy. So it gives us this time where we can go back to another skill that we used to have, put away our screens and focus on the task in front of us, engage with others in shared experience and shared values. And it helps us then do those things which we also need in community: patience, love, understanding, connection, compassion. When we're working with others or we're serving others, that is truly a moment where we have to exercise patience. We don't want to snap at each other as we're cooking our soup, or make the kitchen tense before we're about to serve a meal to people who need it. So it helps us do those other social skills. One of the things I also learned in this food ministry that I was a part of, you'll hear in this presentation how that was a really pivotal moment in my life. But one of the things I was taught that I hadn't been doing and hadn't realized I hadn't been doing was make eye contact, true eye contact with the person into whose bowl you're ladling soup and who you're welcoming to that meal. Actually pay attention to who they are. I'm not just walking down the line filling up soup. I'm feeding someone. And in that relationship, there's this real moment of compassion and kindness. And it goes both ways. There's gratitude and love translated and transferred in that moment. So I hope that in that you've developed some talking points to bring into your own congregation to teach others about why volunteering is important and what it gives to us. I also want to talk about our talents and how we share that. So, our time is one component, but our talents are another. And we often think, well, what what do I have to give? What is it that people would even want from me? I don't know where to start. And so, here are some good questions to ask in self-discernment about what I might be good at sharing. What is it that's within me that could be a talent that I have to share with my community? I think if you offer these questions either as a self-reflection, like take these home and think about them and come back and we'll talk about them. Or if you do it in a small group of people who say they'd like to learn more about volunteering or giving of their time and talent, or if you do it as a part of your holistic stewardship campaign and ask people to dig deep into their own experience and heart, what else am I willing to share with people? That these questions are a good starting point for some of those conversations that we might have with each other about what do I have to give? And some of them are about like, well, what's easy for me? So, are you really good at fixing things? Can you see an engine and know how to repair it because that's something you've been taught? But somebody else looks at that same engine and sees a whole bunch of components they have no idea what to do with. Well, maybe that's something because it comes easy to you that you can share with others. And is there something in a church context that we can do? Everything we can do in a church context. If you're a good knitter, you can teach other people to knit and have a sewing circle where you make baby caps or blankets for newborns and give them to hospitals or to women's shelters or things like that. We never know what skills we have that other people might say, yeah, I'd like to learn that, or this has always mystified me, but you can explain it in a way I can understand it. And we start saying, so ask yourself, what comes easily to me? What am I really good at? What have I been doing my whole life that is so easy that I don't even think about it being a task anymore? It's where I go to some of those places, go back in your mind to some of those places where you really excelled, where you're really good at a particular subject in school or a particular way of life, something that came easy to you that you learned that you can teach others. um, think about those. Where do people compliment you? When you get compliments from coworkers or friends or people who know you really well, and they say you're a really good listener, or you're a really good teacher, or you're a really funny person, you can break through a moment and make people come, find ease with each other. Those are little messages from the universe telling you that you're really good at something and that maybe that's something you can teach others, or maybe you can employ that particular skill in your ministry for your church and help provide that same thing to other people. So ask your friends, what am I really good at? Or what would your friends say that you're really good at or you're really known for? What are my strengths? Finding some questions like this and asking them of ourselves and of others will help you when you're asking your members to share holistically Give them some ideas on things they might want to share with the church. There are some of things that we want to avoid when we talk about our talents as well, though. Often when we're asked to talk about ourselves, we think it's an interview and we start trying to pitch ourselves. So make sure that, you're pretty realistic and you can't cook a Michelin star meal, but you can make a pot of soup, and be clear with people about where you are good and where your limits are so that somebody who's looking at developing a program based on volunteers giving their talent knows who they're working with and what their skills really are. Sometimes we also are really specific. Well, I'm really good at this one thing, and I don't know, and maybe that's not a skill your church needs, but what does that one thing unlock, or is the building block towards other things? Think a little more deeply about it and how it plays out, so that we can find ways that maybe your particular passion can expand into other ministries or other ideas. And then we often think, well, I don't have anything to give, or I'm not good enough at that to teach it to others. I made a batch of biscuits this morning, true story, right? Just 2 hours ago that completely failed. They did not rise. And so I presented my friends with breakfast and a bunch of bad biscuits. Well, this is okay too. But I haven't like ruined my experience. I haven't like taken this inwardly and thrown away cooking and baking for my whole life. It was a bad batch of biscuits. We'll all get over it. So, telling ourselves that what we have to offer isn't needed, or that we're not always good at it, or we can't duplicate our best moments. These are traps that we get into, and each of these traps are things that consciously or unconsciously we do that keep us from being able to share our talent with our churches and with our community. I think there are lots of reasons why being vulnerable is scary. And when we truly tap into our own passion, things that we care about, we're opening up our vulnerability. If somebody doesn't like it or doesn't want it in the way we have to share it, then what does that mean? And maybe we have some feeling about that. Well, so avoid those traps, know yourself, know your limits, but also know your strengths and know how you can share best with your church. I'm asking these questions and I'm asking you to think about these questions as you move into your stewardship ministry, because I think we really need to help our members think about what they have to offer in the most generous of ways. Our congregations are smaller than they used to be. Our finances might be tighter than they used to be. And so it's calling on us to share in many ways, in more deep ways, so that we can keep sustainability in our communities, so that we can educate and provide services for our neighbors and make certain that we're delivering ministry into our community that's needed. And it's going to take all of us working a little harder to find out what also we can give to our church. So I hope that some of these questions about our time and our talent have been helpful for you and will be helpful for you as you think about your next stewardship campaign and how to really encourage time and talent. We need to develop our gifts always. So our learning doesn't stop at our education or on our last day of school. It doesn't stop when we think we've mastered a skill. There's always somewhere else to go. And so, having a life of gratitude and a life of building on all those skills can really help us as, I guess it helps us fulfill the mission that God has for us in in being God's hands and action in the world. So we owe it to God and to ourselves to continue developing, to continue finding yet new ways that we can connect with our neighbors and offer gifts. So maybe adopting a practice of gratitude for the gifts that we've already been given, name them, And maybe it takes several prayer sessions to get through naming or thanking God for all that you've been given, but really try to be grateful for them, each of them. Hold those skills or those experiences, those moments, those people in your life, hold them up and give them to God in a moment of gratitude. Uh, Pray always for how can God use me? How can God channel God's self through me so that I can serve my neighbors? Pray for guidance. What are these random skills that I have? What's the best use? Pray for guidance so that you develop an understanding so you can pitch an idea to your church. I'd like to start a class in this. I have this skill that I think would be useful. I could help our neighbors in this way. Practice. Like with my biscuits, I hadn't made them in a while and I'd forgotten a crucial step. Practice. And when we practice, we remember how to do it and how to get better at it and better at it so that we can teach others how to do that. With practice also comes study. And this is one of those things that scripture teaches us that we have to continue to consult it and consult our theology and our teaching. This is why our preachers preach on the gospel and open it up to us each week in new ways so that we can study it, so that we can learn that there's some nugget of information that we can use to build on ourselves. And so God knows us and God knows our gifts. And when we perfect them, when we create them, when we thank God for them, we bring those gifts into holy alignment with who we are and how we have gifts to share with the world. I want to move into this last section of our time together by talking a little bit about how to create a plan for your volunteer ministry. With this, I want to remind us that you can't just say, we need volunteers. Well, you can, you can start there, but you have to move deeper and say, well, what do I want them to do? What don't I need them to do? What are some skills? What's some support they're going to need if I call them to do this task? Are they going to need cleaning supplies provided by the church? Are they going to need some structure so that they know what their guidelines are? Spend a little time developing a job description. It doesn't have to be like a 3-page job description that you might use in a workplace, but what's a couple of paragraphs and some basic skills that you're asking people to identify with so that they can do this particular task that you're asking them to do. What I'm saying in all this is that utilizing volunteers, involving volunteers in your ministry asks of you a little work in preparing for that so that they come and their time isn't wasted, so that they know what to do, so that they can be appropriately harnessed and channeled, and then move on to the other things that God is calling them to do in their life and to have a full experience. So, I have some ideas on some steps you can take in your congregation to be ready to have a volunteer ministry or a ministry reliant on volunteers. One of them is to take a look at your ministry needs, to increase your visibility. People need to know that you're asking. We're going to go into each of these in a second. Um, really understand that, especially for our younger members, volunteering is a way into church. They may not come to your church as a visitor on a Sunday. They might start their relationship with church through one of your community programs or your volunteering opportunities. It's a safer place for people, for maybe some of our Gen Z and our up and coming Gen Alpha, to engage with church through the work that they do. So, really see and understand that when you're asking for volunteers, you might be starting a new member recruitment strategy. This is a good thing for us. Make clear the link between serving and belonging. Belonging is one of the things that we look for in church. We want to feel valued, loved, expected, and that our time is appreciated And that's part of belonging to a place. So, one of the ways that we do that is by drawing that line under serving and belonging and connecting those things for folks. Empower your youngest people to be leaders. Get them started early. They can start early in small things and in small ways to get comfort speaking in public or donating their time to something or understanding their role in church, that it's accepted, uh, that it's gratefully accepted in whatever ways that they have. Uh, Empower your young members to lead. Celebrate your volunteers publicly, commission them, know that their work is God led and spirit inspired, and that they will see and encounter Jesus in the world as they go about this, and then celebrate them when their moment is done or annually at a recognition Sunday or something like that. Have a moment where you thank all of your volunteers. And finally, track your engagement. You should be able to know how many volunteers it takes to run a program and what your optimal, just like you would do in a corporate setting, you need to know what your head count is and that people are fully employed, right? You need to know that your volunteers are there too and that they are delivering what's expected. So maybe they need training or coaching or mentoring, or and that they're not overwhelmed. Like you're not expecting them to work 40-hour volunteer gigs and to be able to work their job and live their family life. So let's talk a little bit about each of these. The first, I think, thing that congregations should engage in frequently, annually if possible, or at least every couple of years, is really take a look at what the needs of your community are and how have they changed since the last time you asked this question. What do our neighbors need of us? And what is already being done in our neighborhood? What isn't being done? Is there a role for us in it? So really learn where your skills are needed. If there are 5 daycare centers in your town, you probably shouldn't want to open up a sixth unless there are really that many kids. Look for markets that are not already saturated. So something else might be needed instead, something else where you can put your time and your energy. And then that's also within church too, right? Like if everybody wants to serve on the gardening committee, but no one wants to serve on the finance committee, you might need to help people understand where their skills are and that it takes a little bit of all of us to run run our churches and make sure that our churches can function. So take a look at what you actually need from your members and where they can plug in. Um, to do this, do some focus group work, some listening sessions, invite neighborhood partners or members, people who live near you or work near you to be a part of those. How could you use, if we had a group of volunteers on a Saturday that was willing to show up at your nonprofit, what could you do with those people? What would you use them for? Is there something else we can help you with? Forming these partnerships is really helpful in helping congregations not have to reinvent the ministry wheel every time. So you can partner with a school or a nonprofit or another business that is doing things in your community that are values driven and purpose forward, and bring a group of from your church to do that, and people feel that connection to ministry, and in fact they're doing the work of stewardship in seeking and serving Christ in all people and serving and opening their hearts and their hands to the world. Make your needs known. Um, if the only place you're advertising volunteer opportunities is in your Sunday bulletin or from announcements that you have to be in church to hear, you will not get anyone who isn't in church that Sunday to volunteer for something. So at the bare minimum, put it on your outdoor sign or put a flyer up. And if you have a window that people, walk by or read, or a signboard that you change the announcements on, list your volunteer opportunities there as well, so that people in the neighborhood who are looking for some place to join an organization that has some values around it, that is doing something positive for the community, they might start to identify your church as a place where that work is happening and join up too. Of course, advertise in your own bulletin, on your own website, on your Facebook page, and your social media, but also put that out there for your community as well. We need to advertise that we need volunteers. Put an ad in your local neighborhood paper. You know, on Saturdays we do this, on Tuesday nights we do this, and we're looking for volunteers. You can screen them, you can train them, you can notice who they are. If they're working with kids, obviously your diocese will have some background information that they want and some training on safe church and things like that. You know, enroll them appropriately in your ministry so that you know who is working in your church and who's volunteering. But this is really important work that we do, and advertise it beyond your church. Include a ways to serve insert in your bulletin, in your pew card, on your outdoor church sign. Let people know here are all the ways that our members connect. Definitely put that in your new member incorporation packet or your new member packet, whatever it looks like, so that people know, wow, we require a lot of volunteers here because we're active, we do a lot. And here are the things, if you're not interested in that, here's a thing you might be interested in. Let them know that there are abundant ways to serve. You know, post a volunteer board. You know, we need 3 people to do this. We need 4 people who can be that. We need a monthly group to do this, a weekly group to do that. Help people understand the need and the time commitment. Understanding that volunteering is your front door, not your back room. So again, this is understanding that a lot of people can come to your congregation and learn about who you are by the ministry that they see you doing in the world. If you're seeking and serving Christ outside your doors and they see you being a part of that, they will be attracted to that because they too might want to change the world. They don't yet have perhaps your church's particular way of viewing it. They don't understand maybe that it's a gospels driven thing. They understand it's good work. That's a good starting place. You can help them understand the theology behind it and part of the practice of your community and maybe bring them into church later. But let them get started where they are. Meet your neighbors and your volunteers where they're at, and then let God and your community do the rest of the work to bring them in on their own time. So find some easy ways that people can commit. You don't have to sign up for an entire month or a year's worth of programs. There's a done in a day, a try it out, a one-off opportunity that just gets volunteers used to the idea of doing something. This is really helpful. A lot of people might just have one Saturday to give and they want a place to do it. Give them something really meaningful for that time. So try that. Look at this seasonally, serve a Saturday, lend a hand day, an Advent team focused on this. So you're not signing your whole life away. You're just doing one thing. And then maybe the next time you ask, they'll be willing to do it again and again and again and keep going and deepen that relationship. Make it clear that you don't need to be a member to serve. You might not have all of your ministries that way. You want your Sunday school or godly play teachers to, in fact, be members because they're teaching a particular skill set. But, you know, do you need that from people who serve in a food pantry or who tutor kids after school or who help you do a cleanup in the park? Do they have to be members to join? No. In fact, if they're willing to show up and they're willing to join you, and be a part of you for that day or that week or that length of time, welcome them. They'll take care of membership later when they learn who you are and that they want to be a part of you. Some of the things you can do, though, even with a group of volunteers who aren't necessarily church members, is continue to share your particular values or the faith that's behind your work, and they'll come to know you slowly through that as well. So maybe offer a reflection that starts or ends your volunteer time, a little debrief. What did you see in that? What was the moment you had with a volunteer or with a neighbor or with a beneficiary that stands out for you? Where is God in that moment, if they're ready to answer such a question like that? Or maybe it starts with prayer or ends with prayer or blessing, that can be simple and easy and inclusive in a way that people feel that they haven't signed on to a whole theology, but they understood that there's some gospel behind this. There's some values that this church has, and I've been a part of them even briefly. That can be a really beautiful thing. And then, you can invite them from those volunteer experiences then into other things. Well, we're doing a book study. We have a Wednesday night potluck that's about conversation and getting together. No membership required. We have a recital series that you might enjoy. Get them used to coming into church, seeing that it's a place where they can bring themselves into relationship with God and with other people on their own terms. Again, God will take care of connecting with them and inviting them into a closer relationship. You just provide those ongoing opportunities for people to get to know you and get to know the space and the place. When we're talking about volunteers, we want to make disciples out of our volunteers and out of our young people. Understand that these are lifelong commitments, that this is a part of being in community. And so start young. Ask your young adults or teens or tweens what they care about, and let them know that the vestry takes that seriously when they're looking at ministries in the community. Survey your young people as well, because they have a voice. And if their voice isn't heard, then when it comes time for them to make a more adult commitment to your community, they'll remember that they weren't appreciated or weren't heard. So get them involved early, ask their advice, and give them some follow up on that advice. Sometimes they have great ideas. Just because they're young doesn't mean they don't know the right thing to do or a good way for your church to act in the world, or a ministry that you might want to do. Um, Show them the behind the scenes part of church as well. Let them into a committee meeting, show them what a budget is like, have them do some fundraising for a ministry that they really care about, mentor them, not just in your acolyte ministry or those things, which are very important as well, but in church governance, in volunteering, in the ministry and the work that we do. Ask them to speak, read, as soon as they can, reach the lectern and read a sentence confidently. Ask them to start reading on Sundays. This is a beautiful ministry that encourages them to hear their voice in church, hear speaking into a microphone, and it's not scary. I'm used to this. Ask them to make announcements rather than push it off to their parents. If their parents and they are involved in sandwich making after church, ask the kids to do it, and learn about it. It can be funny. There might be awkward moments where they get confused or messed up, or the announcement might go on a little too long. Roll with it, and it's learning experience for them, which is really important to learn in a place that's safe, that it's okay to speak in public, and that people are listening to you and appreciating what you have to say. That's a really important validation for a young person. And recruit young members as soon as it's appropriate into your committee structures. Maybe have a youth representative on your vestry. They might not have the same kind of vote as your adult members. They may or may not be confirmed yet, but invite them in. Let them see how you debate things, how you bring issues forward, what their role in caring for their church might look like. Not all volunteers do volunteering to be recognized, but recognition is a good strategy in our volunteers. It's the only form of payment besides feeling good that they get. And so having a annual volunteer recognition Sunday, where you might commission them, bless them, maybe give them a token gift or say some prayers over them, let them stand and be recognized. However you want to do it, make sure that your volunteers are recognized for the work that they do. Have a recurring part of your newsletter that's a spotlight on volunteers in your ministry. And you don't just have to say, Sally worked really hard in the food pantry and gave away 20 boxes of food last Sunday. But you might also say, and here's who Sally is and what her life is like, and get to know Sally. And this is why this ministry means something to her. This is what she's learned. So these are testimonials that talk about the story of why someone's involved in a ministry, which helps us unlock our own story about why we're involved. And we join that storytelling track. Storytelling is so important, and our volunteers are great opportunities for high energy, high impact storytelling in your ministry. Always have lots of pictures of people serving, not just the finished product. Make sure you have required permissions for people if you're going to photograph their faces, and especially if kids are involved. But know that pictures of people doing ministry are so much more interesting than the picture of a completed project and no people in it, right? Make sure there are people because those messages connect with new volunteers. The final product is nice looking, but the people doing that project is why people are volunteering. So show them that experience in video and in pictures. Pay attention to who's participating. Just like you might follow up with a new member and invite them to coffee or get to know them better, do that with volunteers who are coming back frequently but may not have joined your community yet. Let them know that they're also welcome, that you want to know about their life and how you can support them in the things that they do. That's a good little message that says this church cares about you, and when you're ready, we'll be here for you. Know who's and how many people are serving in your ministries. It really helps at the end of the year if you can say, this ministry is really important to us, and it takes this many people working this many hours to do it. And you might have to factor that in. Do we have that many people and that many hours if this is what it takes? Are people getting fatigued? Are they not recruiting new volunteers to replace them when they want to leave or move on? Know this, track this so that ministries don't just fall off the cliff when people are tired or exhausted or done with them. Help them be sustainable by knowing what it takes to run them. Your volunteers are your potential new members. So if you are really doing the work of advertising your volunteer opportunities outside your church, and you are getting some people who want to show up and volunteer with you to help change the world, because that matters to them, then eventually it will be time for them to want to consider membership with you. You'll know when it's time to bridge that connection, and they'll know when it's time to say yes to that. If you ask them too early, they may not be ready to say yes yet. So look for these authentic connections. People are more likely to stay where they feel useful and seen. Have a job description, have support for their volunteer ministry, have a limited amount of time that they have to do it and use that time wisely, and recognize and thank them so that they feel like it's a full experience. Look for ways that align with values. So, your church has values. Our society has values. Maybe a particular neighborhood has a value about the people who live there or the people who aren't yet living there coming into that neighborhood or moving into it. Make sure that all those values align towards justice, towards inclusivity, towards love, and draw that connection point between what we're doing in the world, what happens at the altar, who we are formed to be, and who God knows us to be. Celebrate the social connection. Give people a reason not just to come and work hard for you, but also to have fun, to experience each other as full humans outside the volunteer experience. Form those connections because those strengthening friendships work to a church's advantage as well. They have beautiful communities within the community that then form and love each other and model that for others. Remember that volunteering is an easy way to enter a community. People might hesitate to join a church or just show up on a Sunday or to walk through those doors for the first time. But if they can do something as a volunteer and get involved, they come in the side door. That is sometimes a much richer and easier experience for people to understand church membership and what you can do for them. Finally, recognize all of the gifts in your stewardship campaign of time, talent, and treasure. Recognize your volunteers, thank them, present yet more opportunities for them to engage in other ministries. Keep that connection going. Help them understand that their time is valued, that they're valued, and that we'll be asking again. I want to leave you with this final moment. We've been speaking in terms of beautiful time and talent, and not been transactional at all. And I'm going to ruin it all in this last moment by reminding us that your unpaid volunteers are unpaid staff, and they are doing tremendous work for your congregation. Your congregation couldn't survive without the hours that volunteers spend in your church. And according to the independent sector nonprofit that tracks volunteerism across America, if you had to pay your volunteers a living wage with benefits, this was just updated last month, you'd be paying them $34.79 an hour. Can you afford for the dozens of volunteers that you have? Could you afford that? Probably not. And this is something for churches to remember that volunteers are our lifeline, that we need them and we need to have a program that's ready to run and accept them. We can't take them for granted. They are offering themselves in a spiritual gift to our community, and we should never take for granted that they're willing to show up, roll up their sleeves, move tables and chairs around, get things ready for our neighbors, do the work of ministry in our community, and share their whole selves with our church. That is so deeply important. So remember that as you're running your stewardship campaign. Holistic stewardship allows us to give 100% of ourselves to our community and our church, and our God and our relationship with our neighbors need 100% of us all the time. The work is large. The life out there is hard. We can make it easier on ourselves and on our neighbors by giving so generously and so abundantly. I'm grateful for you, for the ways that you give back to your church and the work that you do. Your church is grateful for you too. Make sure that we remind our volunteers that they're grateful and thankful. I want to end by reminding you that you are all members of TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. And if you are looking for holistic campaign ideas for 2025-26 stewardship season, our package is ready to download and go. It has everything you need to run a full, holistic time, talent, and treasure campaign. And it focuses on the good news that we have to share, the things that we are so excited about inside us that we can't wait for people to know, telling our stories, telling our connections, telling our gospel story to the world in testimonials and through our action in the world. So take a look at our downloadable curriculum for this year and run great holistic stewardship programs that focus on all the ways that we can give back to our church. That's the information I had to share with you all today, and I'm going to stop sharing our screen and call us back into our room where I can ask you then to ask any questions that you might have about time and talent, or about anything else stewardship related that might be on your mind today. Charles, you're on mute, so we can't hear your wisdom. There
I
you go,
believe the
Charles.
offertory is a perfect time to thank people and to thank individually. I used to preach like 40 stewardship sermons a year at the offertory, thanking the choir, church school teachers, those who do the hospitality hour, the ushers, the people doing the food pantry. And just thank them because no one ever left the church because they felt thanked and appreciated. And you got to keep it short. I would do it during the stewardship, literally a minute, thanking people. And I've been very successful in my life with 6 words: thank you, thank you, thank you. And people don't leave an organization or leave a committee because they feel thanked and appreciated. And I think that's the key thing we've got to be doing as clergy and also as members of your parish. If people are involved in helping you do something, thank them. I found great power living in a retirement committee, just writing thank you notes, 4 or 5 sentences, thanking people. And also, when it came to important parts of my congregation, leadership, I took them out for lunch. I'd call them up. I wouldn't get them in the hospitality hour because people are afraid to come and have a cup of coffee because, the rector's going to grab them. Take them out for lunch and say, one, I prayed for you. You have to pray for them first. And I believe you're the best person to do this job. And I was very successful when I approached people that way because I really prayed about whether they had the abilities, because no one wants to be asked to do a job they don't have abilities to do. And you sit down with them, you spend lunch with them, and then you thank them and thank their groups they're working with. That's my thoughts and beliefs.
Charles, thank you. First of all, thank you for your long ministry, filled with gratitude and preaching and teaching abundance and joy. You do it so well in your life and in your words. So thank you for that. And, we need to take very seriously, as you said, our volunteers and give them real consideration. Is this the right job for you? Are you wasting your time, right? And essentially, that's what we're asking. We want you to give your time. We want that time to be valuable to you. And if there's something better for you to do that our church also needs, we want you to do that instead. You shouldn't do a job that you're not fully called to do. And that's why asking those questions about what do I have to give? Where does my church need me? What comes easy to me? Those are real discernment questions where we should ask people to think about those things and get involved with that and understand that we're not just asking them to do work because we need to do work, but we're asking them as a spiritual practice to get involved and to think about that. So the more seriously we take our volunteers and the work that they do, the better for our church and our program. I really like that. Thank you. Personal invitation you also held up, and I want to raise that up as well. Personal invitation. This is a ministry that needs your skills, is a really great way to help people feel connected, but not manipulated, right? You're not like forcing them into it. You're discerning with them, this is the right call for you, and inviting them into it. Beautiful ideas. Thanks, Charles.
So I found that you want to there's 6 words of thank you, thank you, thank you. And you build relationships. These relationships you build enable you to discover what people's gifts are for them and for the church.
Right. Thank you. Any other thoughts about how to run holistic stewardship campaigns or how you might think about time and talent in your
I'd,
stewardship ministry? Yeah.
I'd like to share with you a couple of things that we do in our church in Duncan, Oklahoma. One of the first things is a welcome sheet when somebody comes to the church for the first time, asking them if they would like to be contacted, if they'd like to receive information, if they'd like a visit, that kind of thing. But also on that, on the back side of that, is a list of volunteer opportunities, things that you might be interested in, and a space for them to write something else that we haven't listed, that an idea that you might have to share. The more important thing I want to share is from our inquirers classes. One of the things that we really emphasize in that is what it means to be an active church member. Starting, of course, with attendance, but going on with the time, talent, and treasure things. Um, Encouraging them to volunteer, telling them that um, once they're a baptized member in good standing or confirmed, what the responsibilities are, that they're as important as any other person in that church. Nobody's more important than they are, and they're no more important than anybody else. Um, but they are expected to do things, and they do. And they form alliances between them, which you were talking about. It's just a really effective tool in teaching them what belonging means, how to belong.
Mm.
So I think that those are the really important things. I have one question.
Yeah.
Um, we run the pledge campaign once a year, but when a person comes in during the year, is there a point at which um, it's more effective or more appropriate to give them a pledge card?
Thanks, Patsy, for that question. Also, thanks for all the wisdom you shared about what you're doing in your community. Some really good lessons there on belonging and community. I love that. So good work. Good work in Duncan, Oklahoma. Sorry, you're Duncan. What city are you in Oklahoma?
Patsy Duncan, Duncan, Oklahoma.
Oh, Duncan and Duncan. Got it.
Right.
Well, thank you for that. I love the question about when is it time to ask a newcomer to join your stewardship campaign. And I'll start with what the wrong answer is. The wrong answer is waiting until the whole next stewardship campaign to ask them to participate, because that could be months. And then they're missing out if they're wanting community. As you pointed out, Patsy, the community comes with benefits and also responsibilities, if you want to use that word. Participation in community means living into a way of being, and our gifts, sharing them, are a way to do that. So I usually put in a newcomer or recommend that in newcomer packet, whenever it's time to give that out, if it's the first Sunday or another Sunday, that at least there's some information on how our budget is arrived at, how we make financial decisions, how our members make pledges and gifts, and how those gifts support our ministry, that they know those things going into it. So it's not, so if they had some idea that money comes from the sky, or that the diocese funds us, or that we just are sitting on piles of gold, that we quickly dispel that we remind them that our budgets are thoughtfully put together by a governance body that's elected, that we have a process for it. Here's how we spend our money, here's how we make our money, and just giving that information. It's a good first place so that they understand, okay, eventually there's some ask coming or some expectation. And then I think you pay attention to how they'll send you messages about when they're ready to have a cup of coffee or a phone call or a meeting with the rector. And those are good opportunities to say, this is how our community raises its money, how it thinks about it. And when they're ready to say, I'm ready to join this church, is a good time to say, here's a pledge card, and I'm asking you, as your discernment, as you're praying about joining our community, I'm also asking how you and your household might want to share your gifts of time, talent, and treasure. We don't know you yet. So, what are the skills you have? Patsy, I love that your newcomer or that information sheet also says, what might you be open to teaching us? What might you want to do that we haven't listed here? So, you're talking about all the ministries and you're saying which one would you like to participate in or which ones resonate with you? And you're making sure that they get to know that joining this church is a commitment, and you're committing to them also then to support them and to be a part, be there for them and communicate with them about what they need, but you're giving them that opportunity. So if that conversation never happens, right? Sometimes we're very busy in church and that newcomer incorporation call can take months. I think we need to pay attention to that. If people are knocking at the door and we're not answering it, what are we telling them? But after a few weeks, people keep coming back. It's time to make certain that you are connecting with them more deeply and saying, it looks like this is a place that you're discerning a call. Here's some more information about how our church operates, and like you to think about that in your discernment. Don't neglect it. And they'll also, you're not hard selling them, right? You're not saying, here's a minimum, here's what you must give. You're saying, what are the skills and ways that you have in your life and your household that you'd like to share with us? We can't wait to get to know you better.
Thank you.
Patsy, good stuff. What are some other questions that you might have about time and talent and newcomers? Particularly, I love that question about newcomers. Well, what might you be wondering? Well, maybe we've reached the end of our moment together, and that's fine too. I'll talk for a second and then ask for any more questions before we move on. But I really want you to think about this year, especially this year, when I think our national conversation about money and church is more anxious than it might be. We don't know. There's great uncertainty in the system. So having really focused stewardship campaigns that focus on time and talent as well as treasure might be really helpful. If people need to scale back their financial gifts because of whatever is happening in the market or job security or stability, that there are other ways that they can give. And in fact, while money is important to our ministry, so are the hands and the ways that they're able to contribute to our work. And so, they can roll up their sleeves and they can help do other things, and we can still sustain our level of ministry, even if people might be challenged financially this year. And we hope that they're still making the best gift they can. Those gifts also include their time and their talent. I really appreciate you as stewardship leaders, lay and clergy, as people who are focused on these questions in congregations. I know that it's big work and hard work, and I appreciate that you're doing it. Are there any last thoughts on this Saturday before we turn you over to the rest of your day?
I'll add one thing.
Yeah.
I think we have to be um, conscientious about watching our newcomers, making sure that they are allowed to volunteer, because sometimes older members think give them messages that they're not needed or not to do something. I've had to step in two or three cases, and one I was not involved in was a lady who desperately wanted to help in the kitchen, and the kitchen ladies were not allowing her in. And one of our members, thank God, her name was Kathy. Kathy took Mary into the kitchen and said, "This is Mary. She wants to volunteer. She wants to work in the kitchen. We are going to make room for her." So, you know, there are things that we can be responsible for or ask
Absolutely.
other people to help monitor incorporation.
Oh, Patsy, thank you. You've just described almost every church out there. There's some group of people who are unwilling to share that ministry that they've been doing for decades. And God bless them. We love them for that ministry that they faithfully enact and make room for the newcomer. New is challenging, right? Because a new person in the kitchen will maybe challenge the way things are done and introduce new ideas. Imagine that. So, but this is great. And we really need to help our volunteers understand that part of the role of working in ministry is opening that ministry up to new people and encouraging others. You have a skill in this, we want you to use it. And we'll find a way for you to do it. So thanks for that, Patsy, and thanks for getting in there and introducing people to a ministry that needs their support. I love it. Yeah, Charles.
This is financial. At our cathedral, all you need to make a gift is a phone. Very few people today young people carry cash. I do.
Oh, sure.
They don't. And all you need is a phone. You click it in. You make at your time of the offering, you can make an offering to the church, which is great for people visiting, an uncle, whatever, but also for people who are new.
Yep.
It's a simple way to give. You can do it on the phone, and you put a little card in. So I gave electronically.
Yep. Rita, I saw you come off mute. Did you have something to add to that?
Davy,
Yeah,
good morning. I hope my voice carries.
we hear you.
I just want to thank you and the TENS organization because this is my first year in the vestry, and it is important to guide our efforts. It is important to harness all the energy that we are willing to give to the cause. But sometimes we bump into walls and literally members that may not be eager to welcome our activities, especially if we are trying to create um, a divergent status quo. People are very comfortable when things are left as they are, but sometimes it is necessary to ignite new energy and new thoughts into the conversation and make that conversation, of course, become an action.
Yep.
So I want to thank you because you have given me fuel to go back to my group and come up with some great ideas or share the ideas, better yet, that are successful. Especially Patty, thank you for sharing that. That's really wonderful. I think that's what we need more of. If someone is doing something good, well, share it with the rest of us because, like you mentioned, Davy, these times are not the most welcoming of times. The younger population is not interested in attending a brick and mortar. They see the world a little differently. And quite frankly, if we as parents, well, my role has finished already. If we don't have those young parents bring in their children, we do, really worry about, is there going to be a church?
Yeah, yeah.
Because we are gradually diminishing. And I don't think spirituality is dying at all. I think that is becoming different. in the world. We are these kids are very caring, they are, but it's a different way of thinking. And so we too need to make some shift in our own way of approaching life and our communion with others. Yeah, so basically gratitude. Thank you for sharing and for having this organization bring some guidance to all of us that are willing to give of our time and treasure. Thank you.
Well, validation. Thank you. That's really beautiful to hear. I absorb those words. Thank you so much. And it's a good reminder about the storytelling component. So we involve other people in ministry when we raise them up and tell their story about why they're engaged in it. That's great for our volunteers. And having values supported, values aligned volunteer opportunities will bring those young people who may not see church as an avenue into our relationship with us. And then we can let God do the rest of the work about bringing church to them and understanding that role. But we provide that opportunity, and they will come to volunteer because, as you point out, young people are raised with an idea that they want to change the world, that that is on them, that if not they, then who? And so churches are changing the world. That's why we were set up to throw the world upside down and to engage those questions about justice and inclusion and diversity from the first century on down, right? So if we show that we're doing that work, we will appeal to those people, and then we can later show them, look, there's a whole gospel tradition behind this. There's a whole church supporting this work. Thank you for your ministry. So I really appreciate what you're saying. Charles, I really appreciated what you said also about making sure that our young people have a way to give. To the plate, and also put on your giving form other ways you'd like to give, ministries you'd like to involve, thoughts and ideas you have for new ministry. All that can be put onto a web form, the same one they use to make a gift. And you get more ideas, more inclusion, more opportunity for people who are digitally minded and that engage that way. So all good stuff. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you, all of you, for your work in the church. We couldn't do this work in church without you all, and you are needed. I know stewardship isn't always the easiest or most gratefully recognized ministry in our congregations, but in fact, you're really important and we need you. So thank you for doing what you'll do. You'll next hear from me in a couple of days when I send out the materials in an email, and we'll get you uh, the slide deck and the video so that you can share this with others. And please keep doing what you're doing. Have a great Saturday, friends.
God bless.
Blessings on all of you.